news, social media, politicians, and worst of all, YouTubers. Lately, everyone is talking about autism, and everyone is suddenly coming out as autistic. Back in my days, there weren't as many retards. What the hell is happening? My fellow humans, I bid you welcome. I know it's hard to believe since I look like a completely normal and well-adapted member of society, but let me tell you a secret. I am autistic as fundamentally, autism is a very complex disorder, made of many different symptoms that show up in different ways in different people. We will skip the boring details, but at the end of this video you will understand what autism really is, going past the very stereotypical representation that's given by traditional media. Where does it come from? And no, it's not vaccines. What is it like to live with autism, with real first-hand examples? But first, we need to go back in time.
Aku motta gurungo kana. Motta gragfugol.
Too much? Golly! I marvel at the wondrous Sonic the Hedgehog. A bit more? Welcome to 1944. A great year if you're passionate about French beaches and Italian volcanoes. This is the story of an Austrian doctor named Hans Asperger, who is studying a group of children who exhibit some very peculiar traits. For starters, they are incredibly clumsy, constantly covered in cuts and bruises, despite spending 90% of their time sitting at their desk. I don't understand how that's possible. They seem uninterested in socializing, preferring to spend time in solitude, immersed in their own routines. As a result, their social and communication skills are pretty bad. Ha! Look at this loser. In the words of the doctor himself, those children display a lack of empathy, little ability to form friendships, one-sided conversation, intense absorption in a special interest. He goes as far as calling them little professors because apparently making a 50 pages research paper on dinosaurs in 3rd grade and going around the school evangelizing other children whose toys are paleontologically inaccurate is a bad thing now. Huh? To describe this sort of self-absorbed behavior and detachment, Hans Asperger uses the older term autismus, from the Greek autos, self. But despite being weirdos, some of those children display very specific and impressive talents. Some sort of superpower, usually related to science, math, logic, memory, or even arts and music, which sounds like the Boy Scout version of X-Men until the antagonist of our story shows up. Adolf Hitler. Are you useful to the Reich, despite being 11 and mentally inferior? Yippee! You get a job! Everyone else? We don't talk about them. This collection of behavioral traits was later called Asperger syndrome. Nowadays, we tend to refer to it as low support autism or autism level 1. You know, just to avoid constantly thinking about children getting murdered. To be fair, other people were studying autism at the same time, but their names are not as shoutable, so they deserve to be deleted from history books. Long story short, it took us a few more decades to get a grip, and the first person to be diagnosed died 2 years ago, so it's not surprising that there are still a lot of things we don't know. And that's why it makes no sense to say, in the 70s no one was autistic. Well, no shit, Harold. The only thing that stopped my grandpa from being diagnosed is that here, nobody knew autism even existed. Speaking of gramps, and dad, and probably more of my ancestors, the scientific consensus is that autism is something that you inherit and that you either have or not. There are other disorders that share some similarities, but don't go around saying everyone is a little bit autistic. Even if it's well-intentioned, it's just wrong. And we really like to be pedantic. This is extremely complicated, but bear with me. Humans have tens of thousands of genes, and mutations in a few dozen of them seem to correlate to a higher risk of being born autistic. Even if you have all those mutated genes, you might still come out neurotypical or normal. So, two autistic parents can give birth to non-autistic offspring, and vice versa. And even among twins, one might be neurotypical and the other neurodivergent. Inventing genetics was a huge mistake. Research is still going strong, and we are investigating lots of different hypotheses, from childhood trauma to pollution during pregnancy. But the reality is that we still don't understand the full picture. What we do know for sure is that vaccines have nothing to do with autism. This hypothesis comes from a study that was fraudulent, riddled with errors, disproven many times, and even retracted by the original author. It's garbage. And every single study that came after that, trying to find new links, has been again proven false by actual data. Trust me, I tried to get the super autism by chugging every single vaccine I could find. Doesn't work. Unlike my new invention, the Aspivision 600, which allows us to take a look deep inside the brain of an autistic person. We are now in the hippocampus, one of the areas of the brain that are visibly and structurally different in neurodivergent people. This one is dedicated to forming and storing important memories. In this case, it's mostly Godzilla lore and fun facts about Spinosaurus aegyptiacus. Yes, that's how it's pronounced. Hey, look! It's a core memory! Oh, the poor kid has to live his entire life feeling like an alien trying to cosplay as a human while everyone around him thinks he's weird.
I'm sure this won't have any lasting effect on my psyche.
I can't speak for every autistic person. Oh no, wait! I absolutely can! Because I can guarantee that most of us went through the exact same experiences. Living your life with autism! You feel different and you don't understand why. People make you feel undesirable, so you start suppressing the parts of you that others don't like. Ha! That's not enough! Now you're not only weird, but also fake. The end. The most frustrating part, the things that make people so angry about your behavior, are usually rather small and not even necessarily negative, just different. But humans no like different. At this point, a good science communicator will give you a list of all the most common autistic traits, but if you look for them, you will notice that they are always described in a very pathologized way, as if they were written by someone who is actively trying to make us feel bad for being who we are. So, fuck that! Today I'm going to flip the script and fight back. Autistic people are bad at holding conversation and adapting to social settings. Neurotypicals waste my time with stupid social rules and small talk. I take physical damage every time you mention your disappointing marriage, Patricia. You should look people in the eyes when they talk. And you should stop. It creeps me out. You are so rigid. My routines are perfectly optimized. My ideals forged in fire. But don't move the stuff on my desk or I will cry. Could you stop fidgeting? I can either fidget or hum the same song for 11 consecutive hours. Your choice. You are too blunt and take things too literally. I say exactly what I think and you still misunderstand all the time. Who's the problem here? You are obsessed with your interests. It's called being passionate, and that's why you find me so charming. Sensory issues? What does that even mean? I can feel my nails too much, and I can hear a lawnmower, so I crave violence. Please don't get offended, I'm joking. For the most part. As you can guess, navigating a world made by neurotypicals for neurotypicals can be challenging at times. And I'm one of the lucky ones because my symptoms are relatively mild, and like many other neurodivergents out there, I've come up with lots of strategies to hide them or at least make them less impactful in my everyday life. And that's mostly for your comfort, not mine. You might have heard of autism described as a spectrum. I prefer to imagine it more as the stat spread of a role-playing game or as a series of dials and faders, one for each symptom. Some might be stronger and more obvious, others barely noticeable, but they're still there. To simplify, we usually squish it into a linear spectrum that indicates how severe your disorder is and how much support you need just to be able to function. We start at level 1, where you have some difficulties and need some accommodations, especially from friends, family, and workplace, but overall, it's manageable. And yes, Mr. Kennedy, I pay taxes and go to the toilet alone. Regarding dates, you might be onto something. Then we have level 2 and level 3, where autism can become a serious disability that needs a solid network of support. You can still be very smart, you can still live a fulfilling life, you can still learn how to function in society. You just need to be given the tools to do so and not be treated with pity when you're a child and then completely abandoned, which happens far too often. Especially because being neurodivergent is like opening a booster pack of other mental health issues. We have vastly increased risks of developing depression, anxiety, ADHD, dissociative disorders, all of the above, even gender dysphoria and hypermobility for some reason. Basically, if it's bad for you, we have it.
But if it's so bad, why don't we cure it?
The reality is that likely we just can't. We have many ways to address some of the symptoms, from therapy to drugs, but we don't have a cure for autism, and scientists don't expect to find one anytime soon, because it would be like rewiring the entirety of the human brain.
But I've read online that you can...
Nope. There is so much misinformation, it hurts my soul. There are people who are advertising diets, supplements, rituals, even cures that make kids drink bleach, and wouldn't it be easier to just accept people for who they are and use those same resources to just help them with things that work? Just an idea. Because I understand. I really do. Being this sucks. And again, despite everything, I am privileged. I'm able to live a life that is somewhat normal. A lot of people are even surprised when I come out as autistic, because it's not that obvious, I guess. I am severely depressed. Profoundly antisocial soul who prefers to detach from his fellow humans and live in his ivory tower. My neighbors are weird and make me uncomfortable. That would mean getting touched by a peasant! Now I will have to talk to people! But other people have it so much worse than I do and hate having this condition. That is valid, but I don't. It feels like I shouldn't even be allowed to say this, but sometimes I kinda like being autistic. I can go into hyper-focus mode and do 5 days of work in 12 hours. I am obsessed with justice and honesty. It makes me more logical, more scientific, more creative. It makes me, me. So, I don't want to be normal. That's boring. I hope you learned something from this video. I wanted to make it for a long time, but you know, it's a bit personal, so I'm terrified of all the ways the internet will find to turn this against me. If you have questions or experiences you want to share, please leave a comment. Let's try to start a mature and polite conversation. We need more of that. Well, you have my sincerest gratitude for reaching this far and for subscribing to the channel, which you already did without me reminding you, right? Also, share and retweet, remix on TikTok, pin on Pinterest, MySpace. Have a great day, and as always, take care.